Thank you. Yeah, please. I'm sorry, one more minute. I'm trying. Okay, I'm sorry. Good. Sorry for the delay. Yes, you could answer Romain over Zoom as long as it's not on a delay. I don't know how you'd know whether it was on a delay or not, but yeah, you can answer Romain according to most poskim. Okay, so just to review the guidelines of the shir. So we keep the microphones off simply like this. It eliminates a lot of the questions and give and take. So, and like this, if anybody has questions, just post it on the chat. If you want to be anonymous, so then go back out of the Zoom, and then you could erase your name before you go on, and then you can be anonymous. Just feel free to post questions or whatever you want, and we'll try and get to them. I don't know how late anybody wants to go, so we'll try and do as much as we can. Okay, so just to start off as a hakdama, and then again, feel free to just start posting questions. If not, I'll just try and bring up the common shilas that come up, and try and ease the point of this chabura together is to try and ease the stress. Unfortunately, this is from the more stressful times of the year before Pesach. And the reason why it's stressful is mostly because we're not aware of the halacha. We're not aware of the halacha properly. And anytime we're not aware of halacha, then we end up being more strict. We're much more strict than we have to be. For example, somebody just asked me a question where there's a big debate over the Kirkland water bottles. I think the 12 ounce water bottles. There's a big debate amongst the kashrus agencies whether those water bottles are kosher l'pesach, not kosher l'pesach. So, but this person, I don't know who the person is, but the person made a lot of cakes, and they were concerned that now maybe they're with this water, and now they see that the OU and the Star case say it's a problem, although other kashrus agencies it's not a problem. Either way, if you cook with chametz by mistake before Pesach, as long as it's bottled b'shishim, as long as it's nullified at 60, your food is fine. There are even opinions that say that you can lichatchila put chametz into your food before Pesach and then use that food on Pesach. Right? I know it's going to sound crazy. Maybe people will log off and say that this guy's crazy for saying this, but this is what the halacha is. The halacha is that on Pesach, chametz is not nullified in any amount. Like normally, if you have, let's say, a piece of cheese that falls into your cholent on Shabbos, and the cheese dissipates, and you know that there's 60 times more cheese than more cholent than cheese, then we know 100% that cholent is perfectly kosher. You go serve it, no problem. On Pesach, if a piece of chametz falls into your cholent, then even if there's 10,000 times more cholent than the chametz that fell in, it's not nullified, which is why we're so strict when it comes to cooking, because if even one crumb falls into the food, your food is chametz. But that's only on Pesach. Before Pesach, it's nullified. So anytime anybody has sometimes, you're cooking in the kitchen and by mistake, usually a male will come in and take a chametz spoon and they want to taste whatever food that you're making. And then everybody's initial reaction is, oh, now I got to throw out the food and I got to rekasher all my utensils and I got to kasher the stove. And no, you don't. No, you don't. Before Pesach, chametz has the regular standard halachas of nullification. So almost always when something gets mixed in, it is what we call batal b'shishin. So everything is going to be okay. So anyway, so this woman was concerned about her cakes and her oven and all that. And bottom line is, even if there was real chametz in the water, which there isn't, because it's a big disagreement whether it's even a problem or not. But bottom line is everything is still okay. Now, I'm not saying that one should go cooking things for Pesach amongst chametz, but if you did, or if it got mixed in, it's no problem, right? And there are opinions that say you can even, in the first place, let's say you needed a spoon, and you're mixing your soup, and if you don't mix your soup or your food, it's going to burn. And the only spoon you have available is a chametz spoon. There are poskim that say before Pesach, you'd be allowed to use that chametz spoon in your food lechatchila. You would be allowed to. Now, we don't do that, but there are many poskim that hold it's okay. Certainly, if you did it, it's 100% fine. Okay, that's just a small example, and it came up a bunch of times in this last week. So then, of something that you would think like that's crazy, but that is the way it is. On the other hand, that's the halacha. On the other hand, there's a halacha that people think is also totally crazy, l'chumra, which is there's a reason why many people buy their meats and their eggs and their milk before Pesach, and that's because the halacha says that if a cow eats chametz, exclusively eats chametz with nothing else before on Pesach, and then gives you milk, right? Then it gives you milk, then that milk is chametz. Now, I would never say that on my own. I would think that that's extreme. Like, because it ate chametz, it creates milk, and that milk is now chametz. But that is, again, of course, it's a disagreement, but we would paskin that it is. Now, the reason why it's not a problem is because almost always the cow eats chametz together with other liquids. So therefore, when they eat it combined with other liquids, then we say it's okay. But the point is that it's very difficult to try and understand the halachas of Pesach when sometimes you can learn a leniency that you would never think of, like we said with the dropping chametz into the food before Pesach, and then it would still be kosher Pesach. And then you have another stringency, which is that you can't have milk that if the cow exclusively ate chametz on Pesach, if it was before Pesach, then it's fine. I'm bringing another example. Those that are lactose intolerant, so there's lactose-free milk, which has chametz in it. So if you look in the kashrus agency's websites or apps, they will tell you that you have to buy it before Pesach. Now, the reason why you're buying it before Pesach is that it should be nullified before Pesach. On Pesach, if they make that milk on Pesach, it's not going to be nullified because chametz is not nullified even in 10,000 on Pesach. But before Pesach, it is nullified. So therefore, if somebody needs these lactose-free milks, whichever, I don't know the different company names, but whatever it is, the ones that have chametz, so the person say, or kidney is what it is, you buy it before Pesach, and that's the reason why they're telling you to buy it before Pesach, because before Pesach, it's nullified, right? Okay, so that's basically like just a small example of the confusions that people have. Now, does bottled water need a specific Pesach certification? I'm not up to date on all the kashrus things. I would advise everybody to get the kashrus apps, meaning the OU has an excellent app, Star K has an app, CRC Kosher has an excellent app, or websites, and COR, that's Canada, are all good, are all excellent. I will give whatever information I have because people ask me questions, so therefore I have some information. Either I'll look it up or I won't look it up, but really you could look it up for yourself, and it's very convenient and easy. Some of them are even searchable, but the bottom line is plain bottled water that has no other additives is 100% fine for Pesach. You don't have to worry about it. If it has the additives, then you get into disagreements depending on what additives there are. Like Dasani water, this is a question that we get on Chol Hamoed, because on Chol Hamoed, that's like, I think, a water that a lot of amusement parks sell. So since a lot of amusement parks have it, so the people want to know if they could buy it on Pesach. Dasani water is okay. According to the OU, it is kosher Pesach, so that's fine, even though it has some additives. Once we're on that subject with the water, so some of these additives are kidneys and kidneys shenishtano, which means it was originally kidneys and now it changed. And then sometimes you have halachic disagreements between kashrus agencies if you should be strict and you should not be strict. So you have to, in that situation, you ask your Rav, if he thinks that you should be strict or you should not be strict. For an example, somebody sent me a picture of the peeled garlic that Costco sells. I don't remember the brand name. That was under one of the major kashrus organizations, Hersher, but it was not kosher lepesach. So the fellow emailed the kashrus or called them, and they said, "Oh, the reason why it's not kosher." He says, "Like, what's the problem? It's just peeled garlic." They said, "I think what they meant is in the preservatives, there's a minute amount of kitnius, but it's nullified in the thousands." So they said they're not comfortable giving the hersher, making that kosher lepesach, but you can ask your own shaila as to whether you think you can eat that. Now, I personally believe why not? It's kitnius, which is a chumrah, and it's nullified in the tens of thousands in the rest of the food, and you're buying it before Pesach. So even if it was chametz and you bought it before Pesach, you'd be okay. So for sure, kitnius. So again, I'm not saying that you should go buy it or not. I don't know. I'm not part of whatever kashrus organization gives that hechsher. But if somebody asked me this question, I would tell them that I personally would eat it because I don't see any reason to be so strict. Now on that subject of being strict on Pesach, so there is the reason why many people are strict is because I think it's an Arizal that says that if somebody doesn't have a crumb of chametz the entire Pesach, it's muftach loy that he's not going to do an avera for the rest of the year. I have no idea exactly what that means, but because we have these maimorim from the Chachamim, so people want to be very, very strict with it, so they don't come onto even the slightest chashash of chametz, even if it would be 100% mutter, but they want to get involved with anything that could remotely even come close to chametz. Just two more pointers that you have to realize that this is a Yom Tif that everybody's looking forward for it to be pleasant, for it to be a pleasant Yom Tif. Nobody's looking for it to be stressful, and this causes a lot of stress. So one has to weigh whether they have the capability of keeping the stringencies that they want to keep, even though it may cause stress. Meaning one has to weigh whether the stress that it's going to cause on the spouses, family, etc., guests, is that really worth the shalom bayis and the ben adam l'chaveira and embarrassing people and screaming at people, etc., etc. Is that really worth the stress of keeping the chumrah? Meaning one has to weigh whether, okay, let me just keep the ikar halacha and the chumrah I'm not going to worry about, because if I'm going to worry about the chumrah, then I'm not going to sleep enough, and then I'm going to get agitated, and I'm going to cause a lot of stress on family, and it's not worth it, and it's just not worth it. The Mesilas Yesharim says, in the third paragraph of Mesilas Yesharim, it says that one has to weigh, when it says that a person has to analyze his deeds. So we all look at it normally. It means, okay, I have to look if I did something wrong, why I did something wrong, how can I change? He says, no, you also have to look at the good things that you do, at the mitzvahs that you do, and weigh whether you're keeping that mitzvah was really worth the downside of doing that mitzvah. Meaning, if I'm going to do a mitzvah and it's going to cause my spouse to be very stressed out, or it's going to cause parents to be stressed out, or friends or guests, then you have to weigh whether the mitzvah that you're doing is really a worthwhile mitzvah to do. Okay, it's a difficult concept, but it's something that we have to keep in mind, that we have to do what we're doing has to be legitimate, and we have to keep in our head, is this what the Rabbi Shalom wants me to do, or is this just what me with my nerves or my frumkeit want to do, and do what the Rabbi Shalom wants, not necessarily what I want, right? So that's something that's extremely important to keep in mind. And one other thing is that the Ber Heitiv in Shulchan Aruch, one of the Mefarshim in Shulchan Aruch, brings that if somebody says that Pesach is so difficult, then he's no different than the Rasha that's in the four sons in the Haggadah, who says, what are you doing this Pesach for, right? What are you doing it for? But why are you causing yourself all this stress? If one says that Pesach is stressful, and which it is, but if somebody verbalizes it in a complaining type of way, then that's no different than what the Russia says. So again, there's some people that's what he says, but some say that's only referring to the actual carbon Pesach, not the cleaning of Pesach. But point is that there are opinions out there that say that one should be careful, especially to family members, and saying that nobody wants to hear that it's that Pesach is so stressful, and it's not good chinuch for anybody. It's not good chinuch for anybody involved. But again, I have the same issue. We all have the same issue. I'm not talking to myself as much as I'm talking to anybody else. But again, we do have to weigh it. I'll just tell you a funny story that a fellow told me. It's a mashal, obviously, just to show you that we have to make sure that our heads are screwed on straight when it comes to Pesach. So at the end of the Seder, somebody was in a hotel program, beautiful hotel, enjoyable, tons of food, etc., and they're dancing L'Shana Abba Yerushalayim, or it could be in anybody's house. It doesn't have to necessarily be a hotel, but the point is that they're all dancing L'Shana Abba Yerushalayim, and everybody's so happy, and the wife is sitting there, she's not happy. So everybody's turning and saying, why are you not happy? So she says, L'Shana Abba Yerushalayim, I'm having a very fine time the way it is right here, right now. I'm not so sure I want to go to Yerushalayim. Probably not going to be as much fun or gishmak as this is. So she says, so I don't know if I'm going to legitimately want L'Shana Abba Yerushalayim. So then the husband turns and says, don't worry about it. It's just a song, right? It's just a song, right? Which, like, okay, we shouldn't be going through the motions like that. Oh yeah, we got to sing L'Shana Abba Yerushalayim. Yeah, we really want Yerushalayim. Do you really want it? Right? I'm saying, are we keeping these chumras because we really want to keep the chumras because Hashem wants it, and or is it because that for our nerves? It should be because what Hashem wants, and Hashem certainly does not want us getting stressed out. Easier said than done. Okay, that's the musar. Not that I want to be able to give musar. That's the musar for myself. I'm just sharing with everybody else. Okay, so a couple of questions here, and then we'll keep posting questions. If not, I'll just go to different subjects that come up. So is quinoa kosher l'Pesach? So quinoa is a question of whether it's kitnios, right? That's basically what it is. Quinoa is certainly not chametz. The question is, since it's similar to rice and it's similar to grain, so therefore the question is it kitnios? There was a big machlokes amongst the kashrus agencies years ago about whether you can have it or not have it because of kitnios. And now it seems like all are in agreement that quinoa is not kitnios, and therefore you are allowed to have quinoa on Pesach, but it has to be kosher for Pesach because they have to make sure that it's done on runs where they don't use it in the same factory as they're doing barley and these types of grains. So therefore, it does have to be kosher for Pesach. As far as I know, it has to be kosher for Pesach. But you can use the quinoa. No, I don't know how to. I'm not up to date on the bug infestations about quinoa or about anything else. That you just check the kashrus places. They're much more up to date on where the infestations are, because bug infestations can make a difference where it's in which region it is in the world. Sometimes there's more infestation. Sometimes there's less infestation. It's very hard to keep up with this. So the kashrus agencies, they're experts on it. So just check in on and sometimes you have big disagreements amongst the kashrus agencies over whether things have to be checked, don't have to be checked. That's all those disagreements are based on whether there's a chazaka or there's no chazaka, meaning how many bugs have they found in certain amounts of boxes, etc., etc. Okay, fine. So now, okay, so what do you do? What do you do with cleaning toys? And there's many toys and it's stressful. Okay, so that's an excellent question, and that causes a lot of stress. And is everything that's going to be used on Pesach has to be at least checked for chametz. Now, many women, I'm not going to say men because men are usually not so strict with this, right? There's that joke that they say that if a man has to make Pesach and the woman has to buy a lulav and esrog, they would both start on the day before Pesach, right? Because women, Baruch Hashem, are much more responsible than men. So the men would start Pesach and Erev Pesach, and the woman would start with the lulav and esrog, also on Erev Pesach, which is Baruch Hashem why the women are running Klal Yisrael Baruch Hashem, and they're keeping everybody afloat. But well, let's understand the Iker Din. So anything anybody uses on Pesach has to be checked for chametz, right? Meaning, if you're going to use, you're going to use certain svarim on Pesach, then they should be checked, especially if you used it near chametz, right? So the question is toys. Now, children bring chametz around their toys, right? That's not a question. So you have to, at the minimum, check the toys for chametz. Do you have to wash them in the bathtub or in the dishwasher or in the washing machine? That these are the things that people do. You are not mechuyev to wash it, but you definitely have to eyeball it. Right now, if you know that your kids take the toys and bring them near food, so since we know that on Pesach chametz is not nullified even in 10,000 or 100,000, so if a drop of chametz is attached, let's say, to a toy, and then the kid is eating their food next to it, and then that drop falls into the food, then that is a problem of chametz on Pesach. Now, of course, but the bottom line is that if you know that the kids are going to be eating food next to the toys, then it would be advisable at least to wipe it down. But if you're not going to do that, then eyeballed, you need to at least check it. You're going to have boxes of toys, and then at the bottom there's a few Cheerios. It's very possible that could happen. But again, it doesn't have to necessarily be washed. I would advise you that if it's stressful, then you don't need all the toys for Pesach. You can put away many and close them up and sell them to the guy, and then just take a select few, or buy new toys for Pesach. I'm personally a believer, and I know Pesach is very expensive, but if going and buying $100 worth of toys before Pesach will alleviate stress, then go about it, do it. I believe that's just as much a mitzvah as spending $100 extra on chumrah dika matzahs, right? Just go out and buy some toys, some new toys, and then you don't have all that stress, or clean, or do both, whatever it is. But but somebody would have to at least at the minimum check it. But again, you don't necessarily have to wash it. Follow-up questions are also fine if I'm not answering it properly. Okay. So toddlers, do you need to clean out every dresser drawer? I know I hate to say it, but the answer is yes. The answer is yes. When you have toddlers running around the house, even kids older than toddlers, you have no idea that whether there's chametz there, and you would have to. You don't have to necessarily wipe it down, but at least check it. At least check it for chametz. Yes, and where you have to check under the beds, and you have to check now behind refrigerators and behind ovens and anything that's heavy. Then the halach is, even if there's actual chametz, that there's chametz. You can watch somebody take a piece of Cheerio and throw it behind the refrigerator, or throw it behind the oven. If that oven doesn't move, and that refrigerator doesn't move, then you don't have to even move it. And even though you know the Cheerios behind there, because it's considered like it's buried, and therefore it's okay. So me'ikar adin, you don't have to pull out the refrigerator, you don't have to pull out the oven, and even if there's chametz there, first of all, we sell it to the guy, so it's going to belong to the guy. And even if you don't sell it to the guy, which everybody should make sure to sell to a guy, but or sell it to a rav, to a guy. So even if you don't, it's considered buried, and therefore it's not a problem on Pesach. But anything other than that, and there are kids running around the house, then you do have to check everything, right? Anything where a kid could get to. So let's say in between the couch cushion. So even though that's really buried, but a kid could put their hand down the couch cushion on Pesach and pull out chametz. And there's chametz in these couch cushions. There's lots of chametz in these couch cushions. So therefore they should be at least vacuumed, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you see chametz and you can't get to it, and you're making yourself crazy, like it's in an air conditioning vent or like in a car in the cracks in the seat or those type of thing, and you can't get to it, don't stress. What you do is take a cleaner that will spray it and will make it taste bad. And since it will make it taste bad, then you don't have to worry about it, even if you could see it. Books don't have to be checked unless you plan on bringing those books to the table. If you plan on bringing those books to the table, then you should be checking them again, because you have to. If one crumb falls off and goes into your food, then you're gonna have a problem. Okay, so should Kiddush cups be kosher in the chametz pot or Pesach pot? It doesn't make a difference. As long as the pot wasn't used for the last 24 hours, you can kosher your Kiddush cups in whatever pot you want. The minig is to kosher the pot first if you can, meaning take your chametz pot, boil up water in it, and then that koshers the pot. And then you can spill out the water and then reboil with water and then kosher it in there. That's the minig. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. But that's just the minig. But the real din is, as long as it hasn't been used, the pot hasn't been used for hot in 24 hours, then you could use it to kasher. Once we're on the koshering subject, which doesn't mean you can't post any questions about koshering, you can. But there's an interesting thing that we're so worried about cleaning in the cracks and the crevices of the kitchen and this and that. And many women don't focus on their rings and their jewelry that they wear on their hand. Almost all poskim say that you have to be concerned. Some say you should actually kasher your rings, and some say at the minimum they should be cleaned or at least dipped into some sort of cleaner, so that in case there's food stuck in the ring, which inevitably there is, then you should make it that the food doesn't taste good, right? So there you should do something with your rings. Exactly what you do, that's up to you. But just using them straight, you shouldn't do. Or if you always wear gloves, then that would also be okay, right? But and then also cell phones, which we take our smartphones. Most people, cell phones, smartphones, flip phones, with cases, without cases, we keep them on the table a whole year, and we put them on the table on Pesach. Now, at least myself, I forget every year to clean it, but we're so busy scraping our ovens and our refrigerators and our phones that could have crumbs in them, especially if you have a case, you could have crumbs in them, and we forget about that. So that should at least be wiped down, eyeballed and wiped down, to see that there's no chametz. Yeah. Okay. So that's now okay. So then I'm going to try and jump to anything having to do with koshering. Okay, going back to the toys. If you're sealing up a toy bin, and even if you know there's chametz in it, that's not a problem, because you're taping it closed and you're selling it to the guy. So that's not a problem. So you can do that. You can. That's one of the advantages we have about selling to a guy, even though that's not what the selling to the guy was not meant to make cleaning make cleaning easier. It was meant for people that had a heavy loss of chametz to get rid of it would be a problem. So that's what it's meant for. But because of that, we take advantage. We do take advantage and sell things to make it easier. To be honest, most people's houses 500 years ago weren't anywhere close to the size of our houses, and it is difficult. It is difficult to clean. So therefore, we take advantage of the material chametz and we'll sell it. So as long as you seal it up that it can't be used, and then it's fine, even if you know there's chametz in there. Okay, so then somebody's asking about koshering the sinks. I don't know if you got my, if anybody here got my, the Pesach sheets that are available on the website. They're meant to try and make it a little, sometimes I guess it could make it harder. But if you look on the sheet there, you might have, I'm posting it now, you might have some eitzes how to kosher easier. So the sink, yes, I have the same issue with koshering the sinks, and that the water has to hit directly. Right? Now, the reason why the water has to hit direct is because you have to pour straight. The water has to go straight onto what you're kashering. And once it hits one area of the sink, then that's the cold of the sink cools off the water, and then it's no longer hot enough to kasher, right? So therefore, you have to make sure it hits the initial spot. However, if you use an iron that reheats the water, then you don't have to worry about this issue at all. So basically, this is the way I do it, which is basically you clean the sink and then you take hot water and you just pour it into the sink. You don't have to worry about the initial heating. What you do, the initial water hitting, basically what you do is you plug in an iron, and iron has water in it. So people get concerned with the plug. The plug is insulated. It's not an issue. You plug the iron into the wall. You plug the iron into the wall, and you keep it hot. And then you pour the water. Just take a pot of boiling hot water, pour it into the sink, all areas of the sink, and then immediately take the iron that's hot and just run it all over the sink. And then you reheated it, and you don't have to worry about the initial water hitting it at all. The reason for this is because the iron actually is going to reheat the water. It's as if you're cooking the water again in the sink. I hope that's clear. If it's not clear, then please post. And again, really, the only problem with the sink is the bottom of the sink. The walls of the sink, even if chametz hit it, it doesn't sit there. The chametz, let's say most sinks, the reason why they become chametz is because you're putting pasta in the sink and some of it hits the wall of the sink. When it hits the wall of the sink, it runs right off. It doesn't sit there. On the bottom of the sink, it sits there, so it makes them more chametz. The walls of a sink are really not chametz. So the walls of the sink, you could just, you pour the water and just you run the iron over it, and that's it. The main part is the bottom of the sink. And therefore, there you want to make it, that's where you want to make it very hot. Okay, I hope that's clear. And the same thing with the self-clean oven. So self-clean ovens, you got to be careful because a lot of self-clean ovens break when you self-clean it. Really 3 hours on self-clean is really enough, but I tell you that it's not do 5 hours. It's probably better hours, but if you're afraid that your oven's going to break, or if you don't have the time, or whatever other reason you think you can't do the 5 hours, then don't do the 5 hours. But 3 hours is really enough. As long as it gets to the highest temperature for a little bit of time, for a few minutes, then that's really enough. Okay, going back, the eggs need a special Pesach hechsher. No, they don't. But the minig many have is to buy the eggs before Pesach. It's a minig because anytime we say the word minig, that means that according to halacha, there's no real reason for it. But we do it. Minig means because of the chumrah of Pesach, to be careful and to cross the T's and dot the I's. So therefore, why not buy all the eggs before Pesach? So lechatchila, the minig is to try and buy all your eggs before Pesach. If you can't, then you can buy it before Pesach on Pesach, and does not need a hechsher. Okay. Somebody's asking, what if toys haven't been near food and kids over age 8 and not running around with crumbs? Kids do run around with food. I don't know. I have a house with teenagers and the food is all over the place. Maybe their teenagers are different, or maybe it's worse. Maybe they're not going near the toys. You still have to search. You still have to search anything that you're going to use on Pesach. You have to search for chametz. Now you don't have to make yourself crazy, but you certainly have to go through the toy boxes and the toys and see if there's chametz there. Now I'm saying, let's say a kid has a Monopoly game. I don't think you have to take out all the dollar bills and search. You just have to open it up and just look around and make sure that you don't see any pieces of chametz there. And that would be enough. Okay. Fine. Let's see. Okay. So what do you have to do? What do you have to do in terms of cleaning? If you're not going to be home for Pesach and selling the chametz, you don't have to do any cleaning. You could just sell your house, and you sell your house or apartment, and there's no cleaning to be done. You just have to do bedikas chametz somewhere. That you have a mitzvah bedikas chametz, So you have different options. I'll post the options now if you want to read them, and then you could comment on them if you'd like. I think it posted. Maybe not. Sorry, did not post. Okay, so basically, when you're leaving for Pesach, which is one of the reasons why people leave for Pesach, is like this: they don't have to clean. So since they don't have to clean, then it's very convenient. But you have to make sure that there's a mitzvah b'dikas chametz that everybody has. So you're gonna have to be in the time you mitzvah b'dikas chametz. Either you leave out a room in your house and you do b'dikas chametz the night before Pesach, or if you're leaving before the night before Pesach, so then you can rent a room from somebody from wherever it is that you're staying, and therefore you'll be Mekayim. This way you can look on the if you don't mind looking on that post that I just posted and see, and then you're welcome to ask. Is cleaning oven gasket a chumrah? So you definitely have to clean. The gasket is the piece going around the door of the oven in order to insulate it, to make sure that air doesn't go out of it. So yeah, many persons say you should even cover it, because it's not easy to clean. But at the minimum, what you should do is you got to spray it up with some sort of spray, because I don't think the self clean hits there because it's not inside the oven. So you do have to, at the minimum, you have to clean it. If you don't want to clean it, then I would advise you to just you can cover it with foil, and then you don't have to worry about it. But yes, at the minimum, it has to be clean. Yes, teenage boys. Yes, somebody's saying teenage boys. They're saying that everything is a chumrah. It's not a chumrah. It's a big machlokes, and this is something important to understand. Is that there is a machlokes whether we're looking for crumbs on Pesach. Many poskim say you have to be worried about looking for crumbs before Pesach. And crumbs there are crumbs around. Now, crumbs on the floor are not an issue. So yes, if somebody's busy scraping the floor, many women will take a toothpick and go through the floorboards and all that. Yes, that's a chumrah. That's a major chumrah. I don't even know if it's a chumrah. I don't even know if it makes any sense, because anything that's on the floor is considered inedible. I mean, obviously now we're talking about we're not talking about a substantial piece. We're talking about little tiny crumbs. Nobody's eating it. So you could you don't have to clean anything on the floor, but crumbs in other places, there are many poskim that say that you have to be worried about it. Now, there's many poskim that say that it's not an issue, and ultimately the psak would be that it's not an issue. But again, for the chumrah of Pesach, we don't want to have crumbs around, especially if you have people around that you might put your food down on a bookshelf, and then you pick up the food and there's a little crumb in, and then you eat it on Pesach. That could be a problem. Not could be a problem. That is a problem. So therefore, there are many that hold that looking for crumbs is a problem. It's not a problem, meaning it's a problem. So therefore, you must look for crumbs. So yes, so it's not a crazy chumrah. That is not a crazy chumrah at all. Which is again why we're saying that you have to look through toys, etc., because we are worried about crumbs. Again, but you don't have to, a crumb that's not visible to the eye is not a crumb. So you don't need a magnifying lens. You don't even need to look, closely. You just have to eyeball it. But you should l'chatchila eyeball everywhere. Right? Now again, if it's a headache to clean a certain closet, or to clean certain drawers in certain closets, so then you could sell those to the guy. We have an advantage that selling to the guy does make things easier. So if you're not interested in cleaning a certain closet or certain cabinets in the kitchen, just put a piece of tape on it, and that means it's sold to the guy, and then you don't have to do anything. You have to do nothing in there. That's even if you don't sell real chametz. Even if you don't sell real chametz, which many have the custom not to sell real chametz, but even if you don't sell real chametz, you don't have to necessarily clean. You don't necessarily have to clean it. All right? Okay. Okay, the oven, the tire frame, the oven that we discussed. the buying the eggs and the milk before Pesach would apply to a kosher store if they got the eggs on Pesach. If they say that they got the eggs before Pesach, then that's not a problem. And the kosher, the milks that are kosher Pesach, from what I understand, they're fed non-chametz. The cows are fed non-chametz, so those you certainly could buy on Pesach. Okay, when you do self-cleaning, should you leave the racks in? Yes, 100%. You should leave the racks in because you want to kasher the racks too. Some of the racks, though, will get damaged if you leave them in. If that's the case, you have to figure out a way how to kasher the racks. So therefore, I mean, I would lechatchila try and leave them in, but if they're going to get ruined, then I guess ask a shaila exactly how to go about kashering them. I'm not sure. Somebody's asking about kosher decal counter covers. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you don't mind clarifying. Again, according to halacha, you don't have to kasher counters and cover. The Hasidim kasher and cover. You don't have to do that meikar adin. If you're covering your counters, then you don't have to kasher them. And if you're kashering your counters, you don't have to cover them. Some people do it because they want to be extra strict, but they don't have to. Mayor, can you ask Shalom to talk someplace else, please? I know, but that is fine, but Shalom's in the hallway. I'm sorry. Okay, so so now next question. So I don't know, okay, the decal counters, please repost what that is. So when renting a room in someone else's house for b'dikas chametz, you actually have to give them money to buy it from them. You can just do it in your room you are staying in. No, you do have a mitzvah of b'dikas chametz, and you want to make sure it's yours. So therefore, you should rent the room from them, and that it becomes your house. If you don't have to do this, if you're going to be home this year Tuesday night, if you're going to be home Tuesday night, then you do the b'dikas chametz in your own house. We're talking about if you're not going to be home Tuesday night. So you have a chiyuv b'dikas chametz, so you want to be mekayim it properly. So therefore, you rent the room. Now, not all poskim say that renting the room is they say that's a scam. What do you mean you're renting your room? You're not renting your room. So there's nothing wrong with that. That will certainly make it that you could check the chametz there. But to make a bracha, some say, how do you go make a bracha on your own room when it's really they're letting you stay there for free and you're just giving them $1? So they say that that's a little bit of a scam. So some say in that case you should rent the room. You should rent the room, but be yotze with the bracha of the balabayas when the balabayas is doing the b'dikas chametz. But many persons say you could make the bracha. I personally go with the person and say you could make the bracha on your own. But yes, you should rent it because you want the house or the room to become yours. Okay, a washing cup that you use in your kitchen sink. It really depends. Does it sit in the sink with all the chametz, or does it not sit in the sink with all the chametz? If it sits there in the sink constantly with chametz, then you can't say halachically you have to get a new one, but it's preferable. It's preferable to get a new one. But if not, you can't afford it, or you like that particular cup, then you have to clean it well and spray it with a cleaner, and then it's okay. Again, most of these things that we're talking about for chametz are chumras, right? Meaning nobody's eating off your washing cup, at least I don't think. And it's used with cold, so there's no taste that can come out of it. So it would be all year round, it would never be a question, right? It's only because of the chumrah of Pesach, so we say these things. So again, if it's a stress, don't do it. If it's, then, meaning keep the old one, just spray it up. But it could very well be that it's worth getting a new one for a few dollars. And that's it. And hopefully hold on to it for year to year, and then it's worth it. Okay, so what do I hold about selling real chametz? So I'll post something about that too. The bottom line is with selling real chametz is I personally do not sell real chametz, but I don't have any real chametz to sell. Meaning, I don't drink alcohol, and I don't have large amounts of chametz. I don't have a business. So therefore, it's no big deal for me to finish up and eat my chametz before Pesach. Especially me, I like eating. So hey, you offer me extra pasta, so I have to finish it before Pesach. Great, I'm doing a mitzvah by eating. I don't know if it's good for health, but I justify by being a mitzvah. So great. So I'll eat it before Pesach. But if I had a business or if I had a large alcohol collection, it would be a loss, and I would sell it. I would sell it. I mean, the real halacha is that mechiras chametz works for all chametz. That real chametz, not real chametz at all, it works. However, because the reason that people don't sell chametz gomer is not because the mechiras chametz is a scam or something like that. That's not the reason. The mechira works according to halacha. That's the way we pass it clearly. However, the one way that a purchase would work between a yid and a goy, we don't do. Meaning there's the different ways halachically how purchases work. And especially between a yid and a goy is different between it's different between a yid selling something to a yid and a yid selling something to a goy, or really buying something to or selling to a goy. Meaning the way a goy really purchases something is if he actually picks up the item that's being purchased. He has to pay for it and pick it up. We don't do that, obviously, because otherwise you'd have to take your chametz and actually bring it to the goy. So we don't do that because it's impossible. We'd have truckloads of chametz to give to the guy, and he's not going to pick each one up. So we do all the other ways of purchasing, which is basically we shake his hand and we write a contract and we give him money. When he gives us money, we give him the money to give us, and we rent him a room. And while we rent that room, we give him the chametz along with that. Whatever all the different kinyan we do, but the one that works according to all opinions, we don't do and we can't do. So therefore, I mean, you could do it privately, and then you could sell chametz gomer. Meaning, if I had my cleaning lady, I mean, I think we're going to be doing this because this became a hot button topic. The starter for sourdough, since the sourdough craze hit, so people have their sourdough for the whole year. They don't want to get rid of it, and it's chametz gomer. So what do? They don't want to sell chametz gomer. So the eitzah is to sell it. I think this is on the sheet that I wrote that I sent out. So basically what you can do is sell to your cleaning lady. Let your cleaning lady take the starter, take it home. And the cleaning lady should give you $1 for it, pick it up and take it to her house. That's a real sale, and that works according to all opinions. So that's what you can do with real chametz. If you choose not to, so then some people say, okay, well, we don't want to rely on this sale, so we don't sell chametz gomer. But bottom line is, if it's a heavy loss to you, and everybody has what their own personal, what they consider a loss and what they consider not a loss. If it's a loss to you, then 100% you should sell real chametz. And that has many things that people sell because they think it's real chametz and it's not. If you look at the list that I just posted, which again, I got these lists just like anybody else, I'm getting them off of the different kashrus the websites. So which is available to anybody, but okay, to make it a little easier. So I compiled it, but again, just to reiterate, according to halacha, you could sell real chametz. There are those that don't because they want to be an extra strict. Okay, so do you need to launder clothing that was worn while eating chametz? Is an excellent question. You don't need to, but if you are going to wear that clothing, you have to check it for chametz. If you normally would put chametz, let's say in the pockets, let's say you're the type of person who would, by work, put a sandwich in your pocket. Now, I would assume it's in a bag. Sometimes those bags open. So if you're the type that does that, or you go to a kiddush on Shabbos and you take a little snack for the walk home, et cetera, then if you choose not to clean that suit or jacket or coat before Pesach, you have to at least check the pockets and the cuffs for chametz. If you washed it, so we say that nowadays that the detergents are strong, so that would make any chametz that's in there inedible. So then you don't have to check it. So again, if you launder it, then you don't have to check the pockets unless you think that there are substantial pieces of chametz in there, which is probably not. If you didn't launder it, then you do have to check at least the pockets and the cuffs. Yes, because then you'd be surprised, at least in my pants, and now cuffs are not in style anymore, I don't think, but in my pants, the cuffs were pretty full of chametz. Yeah, okay, so if you kasher bechers in your pot for Pesach, you have to rekasher it. If you do it in a Pesach pot, the minig is to rekasher it. According to halacha, you don't have to, but the minig is too. Excuse me. If you're doing bedikas chametz in your own house, you have to do bedikas chametz in the house where you're staying. No, you don't. But that's assuming somebody does bedikas chametz in your room. The halacha is many people go away during Chol Hamoed. So this is an important halacha to know. The halacha is that a yid is not allowed to live anywhere on Pesach if bedikas chametz was not done. If bedikas chametz wasn't done in the room that you're staying in, then one must do bedikas chametz before Pesach, preferably. And if you can't do it before Pesach, then you do it on Pesach. So if you go to a hotel room on Chol Hamoed, so the first thing you have to do when you get in there is you have to do bedikas chametz, even if it's during the day. You got to look under the beds, you got to open the drawers and make sure there's no chametz there, because we're afraid that A, you're purchasing the chametz when you rent the room, and B, we're afraid you may forget. You may forget that it's Pesach, and you open a drawer and you see some chametz there, and you may eat it. If you go into a hotel room that has those like bars where the mini bars where they want you to rip you off with all the candies and stuff that are chametz, it's preferable to ask the hotel to get rid of it from your room. But even if they don't want to do that, so what you'd have to do is like tape it closed and write on there that it's chametz, so that nobody goes in there by mistake. So if you're going to somebody's house, or as a common question where people are using their neighbors' houses and the neighbors are leaving, and the neighbors say, hey, we're not cleaning for Pesach, that's why we're leaving. You can't just let your guests stay in that house. You have to do bedikas chametz there. Either your host, if they're nice about it, will clean it and check the chametz the night before they leave, or if they don't want to do that, then you'll have to go in there before Pesach and do bedikas chametz there, and to make sure. Now you don't have to do the whole house. Let's say you're staying in let's say you have guests staying in somebody's house and all they're going to use is the hallway and the bathroom and the bedroom, then that's all you'd have to check. Only the places where the people may be, but you do need to check it. Okay. Okay, so covering counters. The thing with covering counters, you just need to have something with some sort of thickness to it, right? If you have some thickness to it, then it doesn't make a difference what you cover it with. So foil, is not really thick enough. So if you're going to use foil, which I wouldn't advise because it tears, so then you use two layers at least. If you're using corrugated plastic, that's enough because it's thick enough. You don't need to do anything else. If it's really thin, then maybe you should use two covers. But you want it to be thick enough that if there's some liquid that spills on the plastic, it will not seep through whatever it is that you're covering with. Like sometimes, I don't know how this works, but sometimes you can have foil, you double cover of foil, and then somehow there's liquid under the two layers of foil. I don't know how it gets there exactly, but it could happen. That's what you want to prevent from happening. So as long as you know that it's thick enough to do that for this, then it's fine. Yeah, okay. I know we're bouncing around from question to question, but I apologize for that. But it's just easier if I just read the questions as they're posted. If you rent an apartment for bedikas chametz, can the Baal do it after you? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Somebody has to do the bedikas chametz. Whether it's you or the Baal, it doesn't really make much of a difference. If I'm not being clear with that, so then please repost. The mechiras chametz with the pots and the pans and the utensils, you really have to ask the Rav that you're selling your chametz with what exactly he does with the pots and pans. I personally, in my mechira, now again, I go with the big rabbanim and flapish because you want to make sure you do a legitimate mechira, and the more brains there are in one room, the better. And the mechira I do it with is probably 30, 40 chashav rabbanim. So therefore, I feel safer doing it that way. The way we do the mechira is that we don't sell the guy the pots and pans. What we do is we tell them that they could have any taste that's absorbed in the pot. The guy could have it as a present. Right? Meaning, if a guy says, "Hey, I like your cholent. I would like to have that flavor of the cholent from your pan." So therefore, I want to get the absorption from your pan. So we say you could have it for free. in case there's chametz in it, we're giving it to him for free. So we're not, in my mechira at least, we're not selling the pots and pans for this reason, because if you sell it to a guy, if you actually sell the pots and pans, which by the way is a chumrah, you don't have to sell your pots and pans, you can just lock it up and put it away. But it's a chumrah to do it. So, but if you would sell it to a guy, then when you get it back, you have to do tefillas kalim. It's just like anything that guy, when you buy utensils from a guy, you have to be toilet, which by the way is also a chumrah because this is not considered a real mechira that he's actually taking possession of it. So therefore, really, it's a chumrah. But bottom line is we want to avoid all that. So in our mechira, what we do is we give him the absorption in the pans we give it to him as a present. Okay, how do you rekasha the pot? Well, after, meaning going back to what we said, after you kasha the pot, if you use a Pesach pot to kasha utensils and then you rekasha it, basically you just fill it up with water and just boil it till it boils and then you're fine. Till what age can children who don't eat milk use rice milk? So I would say until the age that they don't have to have cereal. You have to know the age of your kid. For sure, till at least age 6, 7, for sure, the kid could have it. And then depending on, you have to know the child. If the child eats nothing else but cereal, so then the child can do it even older. If there's alternatives, then once you hit extra, say a 7, then you should try and avoid it. Now, if you're doing, again, if anybody's doing this kidneys thing with formula and rice milk and all those things, so you got to make sure it stays far away from everybody else's food. So you gotta make sure it stays in a bag, and whatever utensils are going to be washed should be done in the bathroom. And fine. So okay, the decal, my internet, I try and have it blocked, so I don't know if it's going to pull it up. You could text me privately about it. If it's heat resistant material that sticks onto the counter, again, if the liquid would seep through it, then I would tell you to use two layers. But if not, then it would be fine. Again, it should have, it's just that you don't want the liquid to be seeping through. Okay. Okay. Excellent question. Okay, before that, once we were discussing kidneys, can kids eat kidneys? Kids can eat, yes. Kids till age 6, 7 are allowed to eat kidneys, but only really if they need it. If they don't need it, then they shouldn't. Like the bamba, I think they say is kidneys. Some say it is kidneys. Some say it's not kidneys. But if the kid needs it, then 100% the kid can have until at least the age 6 or 7. Anybody who's sick can eat kidneys, even an adult. So if somebody has a problem with digestive system, et cetera, and the only thing they can really eat is kidneys, then that's fine. Then it's fine to eat kidneys also. Again, you have to keep everything separated. Okay. So now, being that perfume contains alcohol, so there's different opinions of whether it can be used or not, right? Makeups, perfumes, do they need to be checked? Okay. I appreciate you posting that because that's probably the biggest point of confusion with all the halachas based on all the lists that are out there. So let's understand just a little bit of the background. I know it's getting late, but let's understand the background. According to all opinions, lotions, we're going to discuss all of that. According to all opinions, perfumes and lotions and shampoos and all these things, may ikar adin are mutter on Pesach. Let's get that very clear. Everybody's going to admit that push comes to shove, perfume and deodorants and soaps and lotions and whatever, they're all may ikar adin, they're all okay. Because a dog is not going to eat it. Toothpaste we'll get to, anything goes in the mouth we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But first, let's do the other things. Let's understand the background like this, and I'll take a couple of minutes, but I think it's worthwhile just so you understand, because when you look at all the different, lists and chumras, and it just totally messes with your head. At least it does to my head, so I could imagine it does to to many others also. So basically, if you understand the background, though, hopefully we'll have an understanding. How come we're not worried about all year that maybe there's treif in your, and I'm sure there is treif in your lotions. So they'll use something, a derivative from an animal or something like that, right? So what's the reason? So because you're not eating it. So since you're not eating it, it's not a problem, right? On Pesach, you have a problem of owning chametz, even if you're not going to eat it. So that's one reason why on Pesach it's a chumrah. And then getting back to going to toothpaste and those type of things, then all year round, sicha be'etzem we paskin that is not afila. So, and it doesn't really work in these situations. It'd be a chumrah. It will be a chumrah in this situation. But sicha means shmiring is achila. According to the Gra, it is, but most other places say it's not in this scenario. But anyways, toothpaste, mouthwashes, and these things that go into the mouth are they have a different issue because it's going into the mouth, right? But all year round, we just need things to be puzzle for that a human wouldn't eat it, and then there's no kashrus issues. If a dog will eat it, then we don't care. It has to be not edible for a human. Meaning, let's use a weird example. You have tuna fish. You're eating your tuna fish, and then somebody comes and squirts some chocolate syrup onto your tuna fish, right? So now, did your tuna fish become treif? The answer is it didn't become treif because most humans, I believe, hate chocolate syrup in their tuna fish. So therefore, your tuna fish is not treif. You could go ahead and eat it. Whether you're going to do it practically or not is immaterial. But the point is, the halacha is that something that's not edible is not a problem, right? To humans, right? Even though it's edible to dogs, it's fine. On Pesach, it has to be not edible to dogs. So a dog, I imagine, will eat tuna fish, or any animal will eat tuna fish mixed with chocolate syrup. So therefore, therefore on Pesach you have more of a problem. Okay, so that's basically the background. Now, will a dog eat toothpaste? That's a question that we'll get back to. But will a dog eat toothpaste? Will a dog eat lipstick? Will a dog eat deodorant, etc., etc.? Bottom line is a dog will not eat any of these things. So therefore, it's considered like it's not chametz, and it's no problem. And everybody agrees to that in the form that all these lotions and perfumes are, their dogs are not eating it, and therefore it's okay. However, there are opinions that say that sometimes if it has actual chametz in the perfume, now a lot of alcohols, by the way, are not an issue at all. Just because it says alcohol in the ingredients does not mean that it's the type of alcohol that's a problem. Some alcohols are grain-based, some alcohols are not grain-based. So that just because it has alcohol doesn't mean there's an issue. But even if it does have alcohol, me'ikar adin of chametz alcohol, me'ikar adin, it's not a problem. But some say, well, I could take the perfume and bring it to a lab and separate the alcohol from the rest of the perfume, and then I have readily drinkable alcohol. Even to a human, it's drinkable. So therefore, you shouldn't have that on Pesach. Not everybody agrees to this, and we don't paskin like this because right now, I mean, maybe you want to be machva like it, which maybe is something reasonable to be machva. But at the end of the day, right now, the way you're using it, it's not a problem. So according to the halacha, it is not a problem, all these things. If you want to be strict, if it has alcohol in it, like the opinions that say that it could be separated in a lab, okay, so then maybe try and be machmas. So because of that chumrah, so they may have these lists that tell you now. And then some say that's only a problem for liquid, like deodorants and roll-on deodorants are not an issue. Nobody says that that's an issue. And lotions, many say, is also not an issue because you can't really break that down in a lab. Not that I'm any sort of chemist. But the liquids, some say you could break down. So therefore, the lists, because people want to be strict on Pesach, so they tell you on the lists which ones they know for sure don't have chametz in them. If one chooses to be machmer like that, it's commendable. It's commendable. Why not? We're being so, I mean, if you're already scraping and scrubbing your floors for little crumbs, so then why would you want to use a deodorant or a perfume that potentially has chametz in it, even though according to halacha right now, it's not an issue, but according to halacha, the crumbs on the floor are not an issue either, and everybody's being strict for that. So you want to sort of look for some sort of consistency, right? So the bottom line is if you, I would say, this is what I tell people to do, this is what I do myself. If I know I'm using a particular type of deodorant or perfume, I'll look on the list. If I see that it's on the chametz list, then I won't use it. So perfume I don't use, by the way. Just I don't use really cologne either, but deodorants and these type of things. So if it's on a list, I'll check a list. I'm not going to make myself crazy. I'll check a list here or there, especially now with the apps. I know that's relatively easy. If I see that it's in the chametz section, then I won't use it. But if it's not in any section, then you can go ahead and use it 100%. Again, because really, and everybody will agree, even the ones that are on the list will agree to you that these lists are just there for a chumrah. Yes, even if you put lotion on your hands and you'll touch food, it's not a problem because these foods, it's not considered edible. It's not considered food. It's not considered chametz, and therefore it's not a problem. I would even tell you could add, even if it has chametz in it, you can add that lotion into your food if you so choose, right? Obviously, I hope you're not doing that, but theoretically, again, it's not, theoretically it would be okay to add to the food, but again, it's not chametz. It's me'ikra din, not a problem. And the same thing, if you look at the lists, if you read the preface or the introduction to these lists, they tell you very clearly that all these medications, pills for sure, it's a chumrah. All these lists are for is for chumras. It's chumrah of Pesach, wine.
Be right back in 3 minutes. Hold on 1 second, everybody.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, well, I'll tell you exactly what happened here. I'm using the iPad that's my kids use because my other iPad was left on a plane, the one they use, and this one it shuts off at 11 o'clock at night so that nobody could use it, and it just shut off on me. So I had to redo the passwords to get back on. All right, I guess I'm a sort of a responsible adult to make sure that we try and limit iPad usage. So, okay, I apologize. Okay, I'm not sure where I left off there, but okay, we're talking about the lotions, I think, right? So basically, again, just to reiterate, even with the medications, even if you know your pill has chametz in it, according to halacha, it's mutter. Again, because of the chumrah of Pesach, basically we have to look at it as like if I'm scrubbing my floor for crumbs and I'm covering counters that when I see don't have chametz, and I'm covering refrigerators and etc., all the chumras I would do. So why would I want to ingest something that has chametz in it, even though according to halacha there's no chametz, it's not considered chametz? But why would I want to? So that's what all these lists are coming from. Now, liquid medications that taste good, that you actually have to look into, because there a lot of times the chametz ingredient is what's giving it taste. So therefore it's not nullified. So if you know that you have to take a liquid medication, that you do have to be you have to be stricter with. Now I think somebody had posted before about lipstick. According to halacha, lipstick, again, it's not edible for a dog. So therefore me'ikar adin lipsticks are also okay. But some want to say, since it goes on the mouth, then maybe you shouldn't do it. So again, if you can check your lipstick, check one of the lists and see if your lipstick is on there, not on. Then if it's on there that it's chametz, I would say, why do you need to use it for? Get a different lipstick. If it's not on the list, you can use it. Now, some say, can you use the lipstick for all year round? Because maybe there's a crumb of chametz that's on the lipstick. That's all fine. Me'ikar adin. Some say just wipe it down. Again, it depends on your nerves. It depends on your nerve level. I would say, I think lipsticks are not the most expensive thing in the world. So, and you'll end up using your old lipstick too. You certainly don't have to throw out the lipstick. That's without a doubt. So you can just buy yourself a different lipstick, and then you'll be okay with that. But if you don't want to buy a new lipstick, so then really you could just use it. Again, you want to be strict, you can wipe it down in case you think there's a crumb of chametz there or not. The toothpaste. See, toothpaste. It's interesting because some say, well, a dog will never have toothpaste. So some say, yeah, you have to take a dog from a third world country. They may eat toothpaste. Our American dogs are very spoiled. They have all their foods, right? To the extent that the kashrus agencies already have lists and lists of which animal food is allowed on Pesach and which is not. So they're very spoiled, so they don't eat toothpaste. But if you give it to a third world country dog, they will gladly eat toothpaste. So, which could be, yeah, maybe no, I don't know. According to Ikar Halacha, toothpaste is not an issue. But again, since you're putting it into your mouth, if you know that your toothpaste may have chametz in it, why use it? Get another one, and then you're going to be okay. And then many say that that's for all year round. A lot of toothpastes have glycerin in it. Glycerin most of the time is treif. Again, you're spitting out the toothpaste. So may ikar adin, you're allowed to use treif for toothpaste. Better not to if you don't have to. I personally use a toothpaste with glycerin in it because I have some gum issues. And therefore, even though it has, meaning if you have any sort of need to use it, then 100% you should use it. Mine is not chametz, but for all year round, it does have glycerin in it. I don't know if it's the kosher glycerin or not the kosher glycerin, but I'm personally going to use it because that's what I need. And the ikar halacha is that it's mutter. So with all these things, when the ikar halacha is that it's mutter, you can use it without guilt. However, if you do know you can be yaitzu with the stringent opinions and it's not stressful, like we discussed, then fine, then try and be strict, unless you have a particular reason not, which gets us to the vitamins. Vitamins usually don't have chametz in them, but most, if not all, I'm not going to say all, but a large majority of vitamins have kitnius in them. And kitnius, like we said, me'ikar adin is mutter. And for somebody who's sick, it's certainly mutter. So if you fall under the category of somebody being sick, like somebody's posting here that you take vitamin C to prevent kidney stones, then that is a fine reason to be taking vitamins on Pesach, and you could take it. But you got to make sure there's no chametz. Vitamins is different because vitamins is looked at like food. It's not medication. So that's why when you see the person will be more machmer with medications than more machmer with vitamins than medications, and that's because vitamins is really considered like a representation of food. So therefore, we have to be strict. And medicine is not food. So if somebody takes their daily vitamins and it has kidneys in it, if you're just taking it because it makes you feel better, et cetera, and you know it has kidneys, I would say it's probably better not to take it. If it's going to cause you anxiety if you don't take it, then you should take it. It's no problem, as long as it doesn't taste good. If it tastes good, then I would tell you not to take it unless you have a need. Like prenatal vitamins, so many want to ask about prenatal. So that's a disagreement, whether that's really a tzarech, is it really not a tzarech? That's up to you to decide. Again, me'ikar adin, the vitamins are okay to take because if they don't taste good. If they do taste good, then you got to make sure that they don't have chametz in them, and preferably not kitnius either. Any pill that doesn't have taste is going to be mutter. If the coating tastes good, then you should find out if there's chametz in it. By the way, it's an interesting thing. Birth control pills, almost all of them are dairy. So can you take them after when you're flashiks? The psak is that you can, right? But it's just an interesting thing that they are dairy. So that's basically. Did we cover everything with the lotions? If anybody has any questions on that, please post it. But again, don't be worried that you're being machal Pesach and eating chametz or using chametz with the lotions, shampoos. My ikar din, they're all okay. Meaning, before, if let's say we didn't have any of these books and we didn't have access to the companies, etc., then we would just say that it's mutter. It's just Baruch Hashem. We have. I mean, we're in Golus, unfortunately, but it's a Golus that's very good to us, and hopefully it'll stay like that. But because of that, we have access to find out all this information. If we didn't have the access, then we would allow, in my opinion, we would allow all these things. So that's that. Dish soap. So dish soap, that's a good question. Dish soap, it would be better if you buy dish soap that's on a list, because at the end of the day, you have to say that the dish soap is edible. We're washing our dishes with the soap. If it was inedible, it'd probably be very unhealthy for us to have that soap on our dishes. Even though push comes to shove, it's going to be okay. But I'm saying you wouldn't wash your dish soap, your dishes with Ajax, right? At least I'm assuming you wouldn't. So dish soap, if you can get one that's on a list that you know is kosher or has a hechsher, then that would be better. But if not, it's certainly not something to stress out about. Okay, so kasher and urn. You really have to know, first thing with the urn, if it's plastic, many don't kasher plastic for Pesach. So if it's plastic on the outside and that's what you're kashering, then I think the OU even says that, then you can't kasher and you should get a new one, right? But let's say it's metal on the outside, or you don't really use it near chametz, then the problem. So then you could just run it through with hot water. Yes, running it through hot water is going to do. It'll kasher the inside, but it's not going to kasher the outside. So you'd have to figure out a way to boil up some water and pour it on it from the outside. That would be the way to do it. I mean, I personally believe if you plan on making making Pesach for if you know you're going to be making Pesach Be'ez Hashem in the coming years, probably worth your while to just buy a new urn, and then you'll have it. But if not, then you just pour boiling hot water on it. Then it's fine. So the countertops, if it's difficult to seal the added countertops, why is it an issue? I'm not sure what you're saying with the why is it difficult. I'm not sure why it should be so difficult to seal. If you're not sure, so then double cover it. The reason is because the water conducts heat. The reason why we have to be careful for water is because when you just put a hot pot down on something treif, the taste is not going to transfer. It only transfers through water. With a water medium, that's what causes the taste to transfer. So therefore, if you have water there, then it's a problem. If you don't have water there, then it's not a problem. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. I think maybe I over talked. Let's see. You have to cover with plastic your dining room table. It's preferable to cover your dining room table with something, again, for the same reason that when something spills and it's boiling hot and you put it down, then you put down your kosher Pesach food on top of it, and then there's water there. It acts as a conduit, but again, it's a stringency. I think the minig is to at least cover the dining room table under the tablecloth with something. Is it a chumrah? It's a chumrah, but it's preferable to do that. Does a backsplash need to be cleaned if it's going to be covered? No, it does not. Whether the backsplash actually needs to be covered in the first place is also a stringency, but you certainly don't need to do both. Why do you need kosher so dish soap? So listen, me'ikara din, your dish soap is fine, but some want to say that maybe if there's chametz in it, and dish soap has to have something edible to it, because otherwise, why would you wash your dishes with it? Meaning, if there's some leftover soap, if you want to if you're going to have leftover soap on your dishes, then it must be edible. Otherwise, people are going to get it eating poison. So therefore, they say just try and get a soap that we know doesn't have chametz in it. Again, it's a chumrah. If you choose not to do it, then, and certainly if you've already used your non-certified or whatever soap, then you're certainly fine. But that's why we would try to. I have no idea if the soap in my house is even on any of the lists or not, to be honest with you. So again, it's a chumrah. So the table pads, again, if you put chametz down directly on tablecloth that goes on the pad, then it would be better to cover. But you can really wipe it down. If it's a stress to cover it, then just wipe it down. Spray with a spray that doesn't taste good, and you wipe it down, and then you're fine. Okay, I imagine most people have my number, and now you're welcome to text whatever questions you have, or any ha'aras, anything that I should add to any of my PDFs that I send out. I'd appreciate if anybody tells me. We try not to have any ego here, so if I can describe things better in the PDFs or anything that you think any information I should have that I can spread to help out others with, then please let me know. And everybody should have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach and have an easy and non-stressful Pesach. Okay, good for Bach.